In the last video, we spoke about how to question your questions. We also discussed that oftentimes in our life, if we get stuck and we're unable to solve a problem, it is not because we don't have the correct answer. It is because our questions are based on some underlying assumptions. And in this video, we're going to talk about what do you do once you have uncovered those assumptions. I'm going to give it to you straight. Fact check your assumptions. I have actually created a framework for you to fact check your assumptions. I call it the Identify, Verify, and Consciously Choose Your Assumptions framework. Before we begin talking about this framework, I'd like to put it out there that in this video, we're not talking about how to deal with your limiting beliefs or your constricted self-beliefs. We are talking about assumptions. They're slightly different than belief systems. For example, in the last video, we spoke about a person who has a desire that they want to be successful. And they're going at it with different ways, but they're unable to become successful in their own merit. A self-limiting belief in this situation could be, I don't think I deserve success, or I don't think I'd be able to keep success, However, assumptions could be, I know what success looks like. I know what it will cost me and what the consequences might be for my life if I go for success. And I am structurally and spiritually and emotionally and psychologically and energetically ready to lead a successful life. And let's say I have made the space in my life to become successful. Once we have identified the difference between the self-limiting beliefs as well as the assumptions, we can then talk about dismantling the assumptions first and trying to identify, verify, and consciously choose them. Working on self-limiting beliefs, however, is a different beast. There are so many modalities through which you can work on self-limiting beliefs, such as affirmations, meditation, exposure therapy, etc. I'm pretty sure that I will be talking about it on this channel later on. But for this video, let's talk about assumptions. In the framework that I'm discussing with you, the first point is identification. I want you to write down a list of assumptions. After you have worked through different perspective questions, like we discussed in the last video, for something that you think you want to have or you want to solve. Once you have a list of assumptions, check on every assumption. Where did you get that assumption from? At what age? In what environment? From whom did you get that? You would very early find out that most of the assumptions that you carry are not your own. They are probably from around the age of 3 to 7 years, when you were a little child and when your soul was incarnating on this planet. You and your soul basically subscribed to a nationality, a community, an ancestry, a parental system, a neighborhood, a school, peer, etc. And once you identify where did you get that assumption from, then we can talk about the next steps. The next I want you to do in identification itself is that you should find out if the assumption you carry or the definition you carry is a universal definition, or is it only limited to your diaspora, your community, your parental family system, your ancestry, or your culture, your society, or even your nation. Third is, within identifying the assumptions, try to read about different cultures, different literature, maybe research scholastic articles, or even review the statistics to find out how deeply rooted the assumptions are and how actually factual are they. Next up is verification. Verification is all about verifying the list of assumptions that you carry after you have identified the what, where, and how of those. You want to identify with who. So you want to verify if the definitions and the list of assumptions resonate with your own truth and your own soul. Ask yourself, in the most wildest, boldest lived reality of you, if you were completely free and you had to pay no consequences whatsoever to have your own assumptions, how or what would you actually assume before going for that thing? It will surprise you that your answers will be in the absolute terms. You would think about the best, the most freest, and the most coveting version that there is for those assumptions. This step is crucial because this will show you your underlying assumptions about your assumptions. You would be surprised that our ego tells us a story that a good person needs to maintain status quo. However, isn't that an assumption? Your ego could also tell you that in order to stay safe, you gotta not rock the boat. But again, isn't that an assumption too? It's gonna turn up into a rabbit hole, sort of. And after a while, you're going to enjoy it because it will tell you so much about yourself that you would go deeper into your soul and you would unpack these assumptions. And it's an adventurous ride. The third step is to consciously choose or redefine your set of assumptions. For this, I want you to go internally into a felt sense of being or an experienced reality of the past self of yours where you have operated from those exact assumptions and really sit with how it felt in your authenticity. This will give you the why of the equation. Then you're going to ask yourself a set of questions. Is the current set of assumptions or definitions something that works for me? If not, why not? If yes, why? What am I gaining from the current set of assumptions and definitions? Is it approval? Is it validation? Or is it really my sense of self? What do I gain to lose on top of it if I let go of my current assumptions and definitions and if I replace them with my own? What would it mean about my life from the perspective of other people who have granted these assumptions and definitions to me unconsciously, as well as from the perspective of myself that is in the future and living his best or her best authentic life? At the end of the day, with this third step of the framework, you would at least come face to face with your own core truth. And if you're still struggling with it, I recommend sitting with somebody on their deathbed. It is not a cliche that people on their deathbed profoundly reminisce about the chances taken and not taken. The idea of this exercise is not for you to make any drastic impulsive changes and burn your reality or your matrix down. The idea is also not for you to push yourself or bulldoze yourself to rock the boat and just torch the status quo. The idea is that once you do this exercise, you would be standing squarely face to face with your own authentic self and your own core truth. Once you see your soul, you will then be able to stand at a point of choice. You can decide to maintain the status quo, but you do it consciously. You can decide to maneuver your way and bring in more of your authentic truth while maintaining some of the status quo. You can decide to change it and shuffle it all and zhuzh it a bit. But all these choices cannot be available to you unless you are aligned with your soul. Now let's look at a small example of how to do this exercise, taking the same example as we did in the last video. Let's say a person wants to be successful. Their list of assumptions would be, I know what success looks like, and I know what cost would I have to pay for it, apart from all the other thousands, if not hundreds of assumptions. Expand on it. I know what success looks like. Let's say they belong to a certain nationality, certain society, and they would have certain markers of success. They would have certain milestones that they would be expected to achieve at a certain age. They would be probably expected to have a certain amount of money, a certain amount of recognition, a certain amount of status, etc., etc. That's the first step, still building up. Within the identification stage, when the person sits through these two assumptions, they would be able to unpack these two assumptions to a much greater detail. If they study other cultures, they would very quickly realize that the markers and the milestones and the certain amount of money or significance or recognition or status that is expected of them automatically as a unilateral contract that they were born into actually do not hold that much significance objectively. Or they could study scholastic articles to understand that success actually means different things to different people. In terms of the cost, they could read statistics and understand about the burnout ratio versus the hard work ratio. That's all within the identification point of the framework. Last up is the stage of consciously choosing and redefining the assumptions. Once this person has done enough work in stage 1 and stage 2, they will have so much of information, so much of data to build a case for themselves. They can sit with different parts of themselves and advocate about the existing assumptions, the pros and cons. They could also have suggestions coming from within to kind of maneuver or balance the automatic assumptions or markers or cost, etc. At the end of the day, it can lead to a person feeling this sense of immense satisfaction and fulfillment that by the end of this framework, a person who believed that they needed to have a certain amount of money in order to be successful, or it was mandatory that they should have gone through certain and smashed through certain milestones before a certain thing had happened, or that they were ready for cost, might come upon a conclusion that they want to shell off certain assumptions and they want to bring in certain definitions of their own. This will leave them profoundly satisfied and fulfilled in their endeavor, as well as it would give them better questions to ask. And on top of it, it would give them more ideas on how to go about whatever it is that they define what success is for them. Life is a dance of closeness and distance, longing and fear, rhythm and misstep. Sometimes we step on other people's toes while learning the music of being human. Other times we trip over ourselves. But if you so much allow yourself to stop standing at the edge of it and start moving with it, I promise you that life will feel alive more with every moment.